Lord spoke to me on the 18th of March 2011 regarding events that were coming to befall Israel. In all this time that the Lord has been sending me to talk to many nations, my fear was that one day He would lead me to talk to Israel. And we all know that Israel is the apple of the Lord's eye. So, considering the ominousness of the words the Lord has sent me to speak, the prophecy, to speak to many nations, and the tempest that has developed in those nations, I always feared that the Lord could one day send me to speak to Israel.
However, in the second conversation, this same cloud, the cloud of God's glory, has spoken at me, and He stood before me and He told me that I will be leaving to Israel. And He told me that I will be going to Israel. And then I asked Him, so when will I go to Israel? And He answered, very soon.
Now, what does that mean to the church? I think the message is absolutely very clear, because I've been speaking to many nations. The Lord sent me to speak to many nations. But now that He narrows me to Israel, which means His agenda is now shifting to Israel. And that tells me that the rapture of the church can happen at any time. The Lord is now beginning to pay specific attention to Israel, meaning the revival of Israel. It will take the shakings for Israel to accept the Messiah, to accept the Lord, or to be revived. And that's why you see the Lord has begun speaking to Israel, speaking to me that I may speak to Israel. Precious people, we know that after the rapture, the Lord's agenda will be the restoration of Israel, the revival of Israel. So if this is anything to go by, then you can clearly see that He's slowly shifting into the events in Israel. But all this is related to the rider of the black horse, because they are protesting cost of living, cost of housing being too high, and all these things that are economically related. Precious people, this is the time to hearken unto the word of the Lord and prepare for the coming Messiah.
Praise the Lord, mighty prophet of the Lord.
Amen. Now, the Lord, after speaking with me at 3 o'clock this morning, and then after I spoke with you, then I fell asleep, and then the Lord came and spoke with me again. Just a few minutes ago, the Lord finished that conversation again after the first conversation, and then now the Lord came back and made me fall asleep again, and He has just finished a second set of conversation with me. In this conversation, the Lord now took me to the world after the rapture of the church has taken place. This latest conversation the Lord has had with me about the dispensation after the taking away of the church. And when He took me to the world after the rapture had taken place, the first part of that dream, I packed all my things. I packed all my things with my bags. In my bags, I packed all my things were full. In fact, one of the bags was not easy to fit. I had packed my things. I was moving out after the rapture had taken place. I was moving out and I was headed to Israel. I was headed to Jerusalem. I was packing my bags. I had packed everything. And a lot of people had come to me to ask me to minister to them the gospel. I was trying to preach the gospel. And then some people came to stop me from preaching the gospel. Some people that you see going on around in the world, creating chaos in the world right now, in certain parts of the world, they appeared and stopped me. They came and said, no, you're not allowed to minister. I'm not allowed to minister to them. And took me. They took me, and what they essentially did is they recorded me. They said, from there on, now you're not allowed to preach the gospel of Jesus. Even when people gather, when they see you, they come towards you, because a lot of people were running towards me after the rapture had taken place, wanting to hear the message of the Lord, wanting to be preached to. But these bad people came and stopped me, and they were very heavily armed. And they took me to this room where they gave me their standing orders. So they said from there on, I'm allowed to preach and so forth and so forth. There was a risk of death also. And then after that, they told me that even when people gather towards me, I should not even greet them. So it was very highly restricted, saying you cannot preach anymore, you cannot even greet people anymore. And then after that, a big fight ensued, which I cannot share here. The big fight ensued between the servant of the Lord and these people, and there was very serious destruction on the earth. But anyhow, what I want to bring to your attention is that the Lord has spoken to me again, but this time He has spoken after the church has been taken place. After the rapture of the church had happened, He came back and He took me now again. After the first conversation I had with you, He came now and took me to the world after the rapture has happened. And as I went about the world doing the work of God, a lot of people came to me to be preached to. But as the people gathered like this, all of a sudden, these bad forces overran the good forces. And then they took me also. They said, no, come over here, you cannot preach anymore. So they brought me, all of them, they said, have you got me? Have you arrested me yet? And they all came. These bad people that you see doing bad things in the world today. And at that time, as they saying so, and they warned me, they said, now you cannot preach the gospel of Jesus anymore. And then even when people gather towards you, you cannot even lift a hand to greet them. I remember when I was walking out of the room that I had had that discussion with them, and I recorded it, and they had all run. Have we really got him? Have we really got him? And then as I walked out of that room, when I just lift my hand to greet them, because they started saying, please pray for us and so forth. They said, no, you're not allowed. So then again I remember the warning they gave me, so I put my hands down. But after that, a fight ensued, which I cannot share here, and there was big destruction on the earth. So the Lord has now spoken with me about the earth after the church has been taken away. I first began by packing my bags after the rapture had taken place. All my bags, I was moving out to Israel, when they arrived. And then everything else that I've not shared beyond there. But as you can see very clearly, the time is out. May those who listen with their spiritual ears now prepare. Behold, now is the hour to prepare. These two conversations, I don't know why the Lord has put them like this, one night, and very, very connected, very close to one another. But for those who are wise, they understand the urgency with which the Lord is speaking. Shalom. that speaks with you can see himself in a serious conflict and clash, it will be unbearable time that no Christian would like to witness. So may all those that have ears repent and always be ready for the glorious coming of the Messiah. Do not deal with the events after the church is taken away. May the Lord bless the nations, the four ends of the earth. May the Lord bless the church, that they behold this wisdom, to walk in the fear of God, to reject all sin, and to always be in right standing with the Lord. For without holiness, nobody will see the Lord. And in so doing, they will avoid the tremendous great tribulation that the Lord has shown me, and the actions and the clash and the conflict that involves this person the Lord introduced to me this past night. May the Lord bless you. Jesus is coming. Shalom.